Our guest today lived one of the most emotional experiences a woman can go through, navigating IVF, freezing her eggs at 38, and went through the entire process in her 40s.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy Fox.
And I'm Elaine Duran. Welcome back to Deep Diving Divas, where we prove it is never too late to dive in. Our conversation about IVF is honest, it's meaningful, and it is surprisingly relatable. I have not gone through IVF, not having any children of my own.
And I haven't gone through it either, but I do have kids.
Right, Nancy, that's true. You did not go through it. But we're talking more than just IVF. We're talking about navigating uncertainty in your life, trusting yourself, finding strength in moments that don't go as you planned.
Our guest, Alexandra Dell, is a graduate of Yale University. She went on to law school at the University of Virginia. She's a writer, she's a director, and a producer whose work blends heart, humor, and powerful storytelling. She produced documentaries with icons like tennis player Novak Djokovic and basketball great LeBron James. And now she's working on sharing some of her own story in a fictional featured film about freezing her eggs at 38, dating in her 40s, and rewriting her life going forward.
So hold on, you guys. Let's take the deep dive with Alexandra Dell.
Hey there, friends, it's Nancy and Elaine. They're the Deep Diving Divas, it's quite a name. They're diving deep into the things that matter most, from friendships to family and so much more. Join them each week for a splash of fun.
Welcome, Alexandra. We are so excited to hear your story today.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
Alexandra, we know each other. We know each other through my husband, Alan Fox, your dad, Donald Dell. They were professional tennis players, and they even spent a year traveling all over Africa playing. And so they've been lifetime friends. And that's how we met you. And it's been such a delight. So when I heard your story, I said, oh my goodness, Elaine, we must get Alexandra Dell on the show. So
Thank
welcome.
you. I don't know if you knew, I talked to Alan all the time in COVID about politics and stuff, and we had some funny debates.
I'm sure you did. Yes, I did know that. All right, you ready? Let's dive in with your story.
Yeah, so let me ask you first, why did you decide to freeze your eggs?
So, yeah, good question. I was at the time 38. I froze my eggs. I went through 3 rounds of IVF. I was 38 years old, and I was dating a guy who I had been dating for quite a long time, on and off and on and off. And, I thought, gosh, I'm nearing 40, and what if this doesn't work out? And so I decided, just in case it didn't work out, maybe I'll freeze my eggs so that if I'm single and I'm 40, I won't have such pressure. So, that should have been the first red flag, because if I'm freezing my eggs while I'm dating him, chances are it might not work out, as my mother loves to remind me. But so I did freeze my eggs, and it did not work out. I think no one was surprised but me. And but I had these eggs, so then I used them later.
One thing I wanted to know, you have a twin sister, and she was on a different timeline than you. She got married a lot younger. She had kids younger. So did that add undue pressure from either her, your family, or just your internal pressure?
Yeah, I think it did. Not just the circumstances did. It's funny. When I was freezing my eggs right before I turned 40, she was having a baby right at the same time. So I actually saw her go through, she did IVF for one of her kids. So I saw her go through it. So it made it more accessible, and I think a little bit easier to wrap my head around. And I thought, oh, okay, that didn't look so bad. And then, seeing her have a baby, it just was like, wow, I need to get on this. So if this isn't working out, I need to figure something out quickly. So I think that's what pushed me to do it then.
So what made you decide to use your eggs?
So I think after I froze my eggs, I broke up with my boyfriend, and so I was single in my 40s, and it was hard. It's hard to date in your 40s sometimes because you feel like, oh, everybody's married, and I had these fears that it was going to be difficult. But once I had those eggs, it was kind of like, oh, well, maybe it doesn't have to be that difficult. If I want to meet a guy and use them, it's not quite as big of a time pressure as I think I was making it be for myself. So those eggs gave me a little bit of cushion there, and sort of feeling like it didn't have to be, I didn't have to meet the guy right away and find the person I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. So that was a little less pressure. But I mean, I remember waiting in the waiting room, and when I froze my eggs, I was single, and I was around all these couples, and it really gets to like the heart of it when you feel like, wow, all these people are going through it together. Like, and am I on a slow timeline? Am I off track in my life? It brought up these feelings of insecurity, of maybe I will never find love, and I'll be doing this alone. And so I remember actually running into one of my friends who was married, who was in the waiting room with me doing IVF, like ironically, and she's there with her husband, and she's like, oh, why are you freezing your eggs? And I'm like, well, just in case something doesn't work out. And so you're kind of explaining yourself, and I think it really, when you do it alone, it really gets to these questions you have about yourself, or like, am I lovable? These insecurities, like, why am I here alone? But then, I think I went through that whole process. And then once I was able to kind of let go of some of these in a little bit, I remember, thinking like, oh my God, I must be failing at life. I remember telling you have to meet with a counselor there when you go through this. I think I don't know if couples do, but definitely when you're single and you're supposed to talk to this counselor, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm losing at life. And she's like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. But it felt like that. And then, you go through these, then dated in my 40s, and I met my husband. And I think once I let go of all those kind of ridiculous judgments about myself and my own timeline, I met my husband. And then we decided that we wanted to have kids. So we decided to use the eggs. Before we got married, we went to our fertility doctor and was like, okay, here we have, so from 3 rounds of IVF that I did when I was 38 and 39, I had 42 eggs, which sounds like a lot. And the doctor was like, wow, I can get 3 kids out of these. And so I was feeling like, I was great. Like, I was in good shape here. And so we started, and, the first time I did it, we thawed 21 eggs, that half of them. And little by little, so I remember being at work, and I would get these phone calls, not even from the doctor, but from like a nurse that I didn't know, or someone in their clinic. And she'd be like, okay, so now you only have 10. And now I'm like, 10? What happened to the 11 other, like, where are they? And she's like, well, 11 died. And then, it would be the next round. Well, only 3 fertilized, or, and so each round, each day I would get a call, and it was like worse and worse news. And then by the end, we grew them to day 5, and we had 1 embryo that we tested, and it wasn't good, so we couldn't use it. So then, the doctor tells me that he thinks like maybe my eggs aren't good, or they weren't frozen properly, and that was the problem. And so I just remember it was Valentine's Day, and I remember being with my husband at dinner, and he has just like, we fertilized these eggs, nothing worked. The doctor's telling me that, like, he goes from, I can get 3 kids out of these, to like, yeah, maybe nothing's gonna work. Like, you might want to try somewhere else. And so and we're just kind of crying at dinner. And then that was sort of the low point. But then it just really made me think, I'm gonna have a kid. I don't know how, but I'm going to figure this out. So I did a lot of research. I had friends who went through it, who were almost like mentors that really helped me know what to do. I changed doctors, and we decided to do it in really small batches. We thought 3 at a time, and we saw what worked, what didn't work. I became an expert in my own story.
So we talk about this a lot in many of our episodes. You actually took charge and you became an expert of your own life. And so the reality is, a lot of women would have been intimidated. Maybe that you were a little bit older really helped, because sometimes we find our voice more when we're in our 40s. But that probably changed your trajectory,
It definitely
right?
did. It definitely did. And I think, I guess, it might be a cliche, but I think you learn the most and a lot from really hard experiences. And this experience really just taught me like not just what I needed to do, but it's almost like it became, and I can talk about this a little bit later, but it was such a challenge that it became like, everything that I wanted and everything that I thought I needed changed, because it's such a process that you can't control. So I really had to let go of it, so to continue the story, I was using 3 eggs at a time, but nothing was working. They would die. They wouldn't, every now and then I'd have an embryo to put in. And so I think I put in a couple here, a couple there, and I never grew them to day 5 again or tested them, because I became an expert in how can I maximize my chances with so few eggs left.
I just want to say, if I could, I mean, especially as women, but men too, we learned that we have to be our own advocate.
So at the end, I basically, it took many years, but it was literally, I failed 41 times, and number 42, egg 42 worked. So I got pregnant literally with the last egg that I had. So that was a pretty, unexpected.
Do you call your baby number 42?
I do. It's Jackie Robinson's number. If he's ever like a sports player, he will be number 42.
That's incredible. Most women would be, just like devastated. And, you were your own cheerleader. And I'm assuming your husband was an advocate and a cheerleader for you.
And I do think, though, what I did learn a lot was that you have to let go a little bit too. Like, from these things, it was so hard and there's so much uncertainty. And I didn't, till even when I got pregnant with that last egg, I still never believed it. I went through 9 months thinking like, well, am I gonna have a miscarriage? It never felt real till the very end. So I think I had to really figure out, how do I let go of trying to control the situation when I was going through this, and kind of embrace that uncertainty, and know that my story, I didn't know the end yet. I was determined to have a kid, but it could have just as easily not worked. And I was gonna, use donor eggs. There was adoption. So I remember talking to my mom and other people about it. And she's like, you don't know the end of the story yet. This is just part of it. Like, there are many ways to have kids.
Well, you're a writer.
Yeah.
So in a way, your mom gave you, what great mom advice, but she gave you really good advice. If you're writing your treatments, your stories, when you do your documentaries and now this fictional feature film, I mean, the reality is, for us, if it was a book, you don't know the next chapter. That's what's so exciting about life. So, okay. So but you've gone through this whole thing, and yes, number 42 hit the nail on the head, and you had this baby. By the way, share for our audience, you carried the baby, right? And you carried it full term?
Yeah. So it turned out to be a pretty straightforward pregnancy. I had a natural birth, and it worked out well, shockingly, but yeah.
Oh, and your little boy,
his
what's
name's
his name?
Dane, and now he's 2, a little 2.5. So it's
And he's
amazing.
darling, beautiful
Yes.
child, and also just so bright
Thank
and
you.
fun.
Gotcha.
All right, so let's go back though. So, at what point, what it's not clear to me and to
Yeah.
Elaine and all of us out there, because you're great with these documentaries, first, what possessed you to think I could write a feature film? And at what point did you start this idea of writing? Your treatment name is Freeze. Before you met your husband, when you started freezing, how did it all come
So
about?
I started writing as I was going through the process, and I think I just needed some way to get through. It was a way of getting through my feelings and trying to make sense of them. And as I was going through it, and like at first I wrote an ending where the two people aren't together in the end and she doesn't have a baby. And then, as things were getting dicier, I sort of said, you know what, I want to write that. I just, maybe consciously or not, wanted to write the ending that I wanted in my own life. So I changed it to like this happy ending where she has a baby. And it just was a way, I think, of doing it through characters, was maybe dealing with feelings that were so close to home that maybe with a distance in a script, you can delve a little deeper and kind of understand what you're going through by by writing it down and kind of figuring it out and what would the characters do. So that was helpful.
Do you think that, did you do this ending before you actually had
Yeah,
a successful
definitely. Yeah,
pregnancy?
yeah.
You think, I mean, I know we're all, some of us are spiritual in different ways, and, but I mean, do you have any sense that possibly that really writing it down and maybe, visioning that this is going to happen, do you think that had anything to do with it being successful in the?
Maybe. I think what really did help me or help me have success, it was letting go of trying to think, if this doesn't work, oh my gosh, my life is going to be terrible or something. Once I embraced that there are many ways to have kids and there are other ways to do it if this doesn't work, and I started had a consultation about donor eggs and started going down that path, and once I embraced that there is not only one way to do this, that's, I think, when maybe my anxiety lessened a bit, and maybe that helped. I don't know for sure, but I think, I was lucky in this, but I also want to make it clear that a lot of people who might not have the same outcome can be just as lucky and happy and have a kid. Like when you look at your kid and you love them so much, I don't think you're ever feeling like, oh, well, how did I get this kid? Like how did, are they biologically related to me or not? No one, you don't care when you have a kid. So it was,
Absolutely.
I think it took me a while to understand that. And I think just letting go of that was helpful for me.
Yeah, what I'm curious about, so you are a funny lady and you like to write with humor and you're just funny. And although we're talking about a very serious matter, so what made you want to put the humor? Like, for example, you had shared with me something about when you were, there was a lot of awkward moments.
If we can't laugh at these like really emotional things, we're gonna be, what can we do? It was such an important part of being able to laugh at these, because IVF has its own set of ridiculous things, and the ultrasound cover as a condom. I literally asked the doctor, like, why do you have all these condoms around? This is a fertility clinic. Are you trying to get people pregnant? And he's like, those are our ultrasound covers. Like, it was ridiculous. So,
Yeah, is that right? What about when I think you wanted your female lead to have what you call this dirt bag
yeah.
magnetism, something we usually only apply, that only men have.
Yeah.
What does it look like when women stop trying to be? Well, first of all, what do you mean that dirt bag magnetism?
I think I wanted
that?
her to be irreverent and like break the rules and have it be okay and have that be good. And I think in comedy in particular, I think men do it all the time and we think it's bold, and I wanted a woman to do it and have people react to that. So that humor was important to me. I also wrote it because when I was dating in my 40s, all my friends were like, we were like the best version of ourselves now. We were so much better than our 20s and 30s when we we're just so, we weren't as interesting. We weren't as wise. We didn't have as nice clothes, whatever. We were like so much more fun. And yet this group was sort of like, I almost felt bad about it. Like, oh, will anyone want to date me in my 40s because can I have kids? And so it was important to me to show someone in her prime in a script, like owning it and dating and having, owning her life. And I think there's a lot, we're the best in our 40s and probably even beyond. We get better and better. And I want people to know that and to own it. And I was hoping that maybe IVF and with freezing your eggs, you could sort of level the dating playing field a little bit, that it wouldn't just be like, oh, well, I can't date her because she can't have kids, but yes, she can. And it's fine. There's no strict timeline.
Alexandra, can I ask you a question? Your title, Freeze, there's several different meanings to that. Was that intended?
Definitely.
Could you tell us about-
And I'm glad you picked up on that. In the script, that was my intention. And in the script, I have the main character ask the doctor at one point, freezing my eggs help me unfreeze my life, or something to that effect. And so the intention was, it's freeze, you're freezing your eggs, but also maybe you're feeling stuck in your life and a little frozen in what you're doing and trying to break out of that stasis.
Love the title.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
So I have a question, Alexandra. I've been married for 43 years, but if you were dating and some man knew that you had your eggs in the refrigerator, is that a turnoff for some guys? Like they're gonna go, I don't want to have to deal with that whole thing if we're going to have to go through the whole process. Does it kind of?
It might be, but they never told me that, so it could be. But most, it's not something that you lead on a first date with. But I know, like with my husband or with someone that I dated seriously, and that came into the conversation, it was always very well received, because it's like, oh, great, like my husband thanks me every day that I did that, because then we were able to have kids. And yeah, you have to go through a process, but it makes it a little more, you feel like the odds are working with you a little more.
For women out there who feel behind, stuck, or worried about their own timeline, what is the one single thing that you want them to remember?
I think please let go of that thinking, because we're all on our own timelines. And what I really learned through this process is that I think I came in as a younger person thinking, oh my gosh, what my story has to be perfect. If I don't have a job at a certain time and a husband at a certain time and a baby, I'm never going to have these things that I want. But actually, I learned so much that those flaws were so much more interesting, and I liked my story better when I had to really work for it. And I went through these things that changed me so much as a person in such a good way. I had more empathy for people. I connected with a lot of people going through this, and it just made me kind of a deeper person. And I also really found that when I let go of things, and let go of trying to control everything, the world opened up for me in really unexpected ways. Like it was like things that doors would open, and the universe sort of takes care of you if you let it. But if you're so busy trying to control it, you don't see these open doors. And so I really felt that in my experience. And so anyone facing that uncertainty, I hope they know that too, that it isn't a certain timeline. It isn't a perfect story. It's all those things that we think are flaws that are actually make us so much more human and better people, and almost connected in a divine way to other people.
That's a lesson for everything about our lives. But I mean, it sounds like, do you think that you you think that you're a better mother now because of your age than you would have been if you had a child when you were in your 20s?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know what I would have been like earlier, but yeah, I think I certainly appreciate it. And I think I'm just more, having gone through that whole experience, I just think it changed what I wanted out of life. It changed who I wanted to be. And I think that wisdom helps me be a better mother as well.
Alexandra, I want to go on and on, but we're going to have to wrap. So if anybody wants to find you, how can they get a hold of you?
You can email me at alexandra.dell@gmail.com, or I'm on at social media, Instagram, whatever, you can find me there.
Alexandra, thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
reminding us all that love and life doesn't come with an expiration date. And you can't plan your life. So the minute you realize that, it all seemed to fall into place.
And we can't wait to see someday soon, maybe possibly, you might know when we might be able to see this movie,
I
Freeze.
hope I'll let you know. I hope so.
Okay,
I
you'll keep us
will.
Stay
posted.
I will.
tuned.
Thank you. It was
Thank
lovely
you.
being on here.
You know, Nancy, after listening to Alexandra, what really stuck with me was letting go of goals and going with the flow. To me, that was a big message.
Yeah, and you know what? She might be a lot younger than we are, or many of us out there, but the reality is her message is really powerful. And what I have learned and what's helped me through life, and it's kind of the older I get, life is not planned. You might plan it, but it doesn't work out like that. But you know what? That's life. And so that's okay. To me, if you're easy to pivot and change and you can go with the flow, you'll kind of navigate your way through life a lot easier and you'll be a lot happier.
Totally. I do agree.
So if you enjoyed this show, or if you have some thoughts about the show, we love to hear from you. Email us, the Deep Diving Divas at gmail.com, or follow us on Instagram, Facebook. We're on all the podcast platforms at Deep Diving Divas. Eleni, it's a wrap.
Let go, just flow.
Well, that works.
Bye.
Bye.